Hello world, my name is Tim Roswick, and in this video we're going to talk about the 5 reasons why people are not going to buy your game. And I've got some obvious ones and some not so obvious ones that I'm going to share. But before we get into it, next week my game Murder Bunnies, my 2-player tactical card game, launches on Kickstarter, and I would love it if you could click the button down below, click the link, go to the Kickstarter page and get notified on launch. It would mean a ton to me. These videos take a long time and I put a ton of time into that game, and I would really appreciate it if you could go click that link. It would mean a lot to me. So let's get started on the video. In no particular order, reason number 1 why people will not buy your game is aesthetics. If you don't know what aesthetics means, a lot of people talk about game graphics. I think graphics is the wrong word. Aesthetics is the visual fidelity of your game. So it's how good it looks. And good doesn't necessarily mean it has good graphics. It doesn't mean it's a AAA 3D epic MMO. It doesn't mean it has fancy cutscenes. It just means that aesthetically, visually, your game looks pleasing, and that's really, really important. So there's a lot of ways you can do this. You can use shaders, you can use post-processing effects, you can use cool little tricks and techniques, little animation techniques, background stuff. You can set the focus of your cameras, you can pick color palettes. There's a ton of stuff that you can do to make your game look good, but looking good is super important. And it seems obvious, but a lot of people don't realize how much that plays into the buying decision, because games are visual mediums. We play them with our eyes most of the time, and if you don't have good aesthetics, people are automatically going to dismiss your game, even if it's super deep, even if it's super interesting. Now, there's a ton of exceptions to the rule, right? There's a ton of bad looking games that have sold well, so I'm not saying it's impossible. I just generally, aesthetics is a really good way, it's a really good bang for your buck to make people more interested in your game, and it could be a reason people are not buying your game. So that's number 1, aesthetics. Number 2 is perceived value. How high of a value is your game perceived to be? Now, this isn't a global number, usually a by user number, which means that your game is going to be more valuable to certain types of people and less valuable to other types of people. So for example, if I'm a really hardcore RTS fan and you're making an RTS, I'm probably interested in your game. So the perceived value of your game is a lot higher, but you can also increase the perceived value with a lot of extra things. So for example, really good aesthetics is a good way to up your perceived value, but you could also have game modes. You could also have features like multiplayer. You can have a lot of other things that increase the perceived value of your game, that raises the value, which makes the buying decision easier because more people are interested in those types of things. So perceived value is really, really important. And notice I did say perceived value, not actual value. And a lot of times we get lost in our head and think our games aren't valuable, or that we don't have these features that we need, or for whatever reason. A lot of times perceived value is more important than actual value. So just think about what your users would want, what your players would want, and make that, not necessarily what you think is best. So that's number 2, perceived value. Number 3 is price sensitivity. Now, on one end of the spectrum is the high perceived value, but on the other end of the spectrum is the lower price. And there's a ratio there. A good price to value ratio means that a lot of people are going to want to buy it. Now, there actually isn't a correlation between the price of your game and how many sales you get, believe it or not. If you half the price of your game, you're not going to get double the sales automatically. So just keep that in mind. I'm not saying lower price is better. I'm just saying that a price to value ratio is important, and you want to make sure that if you're selling the value of your game, you're also delivering it all in an equivalent price tag. Best way to determine price, honestly, is to look at what other people in your genre are doing, because that's the default way that people are going to compare your game to others. If they like your genre of game, they know what they generally pay for your genre of game, and that's what they're going to compare you to. So if you can have a competitive price comparatively and a high perceived value, then you'll probably get the sale. That's number 3, price sensitivity. Number 4 is no urgency. So urgency is actually a marketing tactic, and it's a super important one. So what is urgency? It's basically giving people a reason to buy now, because a lot of people are interested in your game, but they're just not interested right now. So many people add games to wish lists just thinking they'll buy someday, and there's no urgency, so they don't ever actually buy. When I launched Phyllophobia on Steam, I had something like 50 to 100 times the amount of wish lists as I did sales. So basically a bunch of people just added it to the wish list, but they didn't buy the game because there was no urgency, there was no reason to do it. And that's what sales do, believe it or not. You may think it's some kind of marketing scammy tactic, but that's all a sale is. People aren't buying because of the discounted price necessarily. They're buying because they're scared of losing that discounted price after the sale ends. So think about ways that you can add urgency to your game, whether putting it on sale or adding timed exclusives, or pre-order bonuses, that type of stuff. It's a little more complicated to do, more AAA stuff, but that's why those things work, is because of the urgency. So keep that in mind. That's number 4, no urgency. Number 5, finally, one that seems obvious, but I'm going to break it down a little bit. Bad marketing. Now, that's such a big topic. I actually have a couple sub points to that topic. So subtopic number 1 is bad or no trailer. First of all, if you don't have a trailer, it's very hard for people to find and understand your game. They don't know what it's about. They're looking for their genre. They're looking to understand if your game is compatible with them. And a trailer at 30 frames per second shows them a bunch of cool animation and images and stuff that tells them what your game is about. And it's important that you deliver that information to them as soon as possible. If they have to go hunting for it in screenshots, you've already lost a lot of people. So having a trailer is important, but also having a good trailer that shows gameplay up front, because a lot of people are actively searching for what your gameplay is like. And if you've made a mistake like me, putting like a talking head human or like some pre-rendered cutscene, like, you're gonna lose sales because of that. So keep that in mind. Second part of marketing is they can't determine the genre, which actually plays into the trailer part. But a lot of people search by genre. That's how they're looking for games. They want games that are similar to games they already like. They want things that are interesting. They want things that are compatible with kind of their likes and wants and needs and desires of the games that they play. So they need to be able to determine what your moment-to-moment gameplay is like pretty quickly. And your screenshots and your descriptions and your tags, all that stuff needs to explain that really well. Otherwise, you could be losing a sale. Number 3 is bad reviews. Whenever I search on Steam or even Amazon, first thing I do is I scroll all the way to the bottom, I look at what other people say, and most people do. What other people say is really important in a buying decision for most people. So if you've got bad reviews or you've got no reviews, you could be losing sales that way. And the last part of this marketing piece is bad key art. If you don't know what key art is the main kind of showcase image of your game. It shows up in the top right of Steam. It shows up as the first image on Switch, for example. That main like logo image of your game. Now that is really important because 1, it determines whether or not people click on your game in the first place. But 2, that image is responsible for insinuating which genre and what type of game you're making. If that's not accurate, if it's way off, or if it looks bad, people aren't going to click. And if they do click and it looks like some weird game that they're not expecting, you're going to lose a sale that way. So the key art is super, super important. It's probably one of the most important things you can do on your game pages on all the internet. So those are the 5 reasons why people won't buy your game: aesthetics, perceived value, price sensitivity, no urgency, and bad marketing. I'm sure there's more, and matter of fact, if you have a reason people won't buy your game, add that in the comments down below and we can talk about it. I want to say thank you to all the patrons. Shout out to you guys helping me keep doing what I'm doing. I just want to reiterate that my Kickstarter for my 2-player tactical card game Murder Bunnies is launching next week. So click the link down in the description and head on over there and get notified when the game goes live. It would mean a ton to me. I would really, really appreciate it. But my name is Tim Roswick, and I will see you all in the next video.